And would you
talk
like
to your advisory council during the break? And
you don't need to yell at me either.
I'm at you, okay?
Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk to me that way. I'm very curious.
Take her out.
Vallow Daybell booted from the courtroom by the judge during her second trial in Arizona. It all happened while she was cross-examining Brandon Booudreaux.
You told Detective Pillar that someone had convinced Melani that you were gay.
I look at the most shocking moments so far from week 1 of the trial. Welcome to Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Things are off to a rocky start for Vallow Daybell in her second trial in Maricopa County, Arizona. I'll get to all of the craziness here in a bit. This trial has to do with the allegation that Lori conspired with her brother, Alex Cox, to try to murder Brandon Booudreaux. This trial comes more than a month after a jury in the very same county found Lori guilty of conspiring with Alex to murder her estranged husband, Charles Vallow, back in July of 2019. Now, Lori's already serving 3 life sentences in Idaho for the murders of her children, Tylee Ryan and JJ Vallow, and the murder of Tammy Daybell, the late wife of her current husband, Chad Daybell. Now, just a little background. Lori and Chad got married in November of 2019 after Charles, JJ, Tylee, and Tammy were all killed. Both believed in this ultra extra extreme form of Mormonism that they had kind of created, in which they believed people were light and dark. Light people were closer to God in their world, and dark people were inhabited by zombies, and they had to go. Prosecutors will tell you anyone who was in the way of Chad and Lori's desire to be together and to gain money was basically dark. So back to Brandon Booudreaux. Brandon Booudreaux is the ex-husband of Melani Pawlowski, Lori's niece. Prosecutors say Lori conspired with Alex Cox to murder Brandon because he was dark, and Melani, a co-conspirator who has not been charged, stood to benefit financially from Brandon's death. Alex Cox died in December of 2019, so he's not been charged, but prosecutors say Cox took a shot at Brandon from Lori's Jeep in October of 2019. Jury selection was supposed to resume on Monday of this week after Lori said she was too sick to continue last Friday. But when Monday came, there was drama with Lori for sure. Take a look at the video from the court feed.
I do have a right to represent myself. I'm sorry that I'm sick. I did not plan on getting sick. I did not try to get sick. This isn't anything to do with anything other than the fact that I'm incapable of going forward and doing a good job representing myself. I've been incarcerated for over 5.5 years. I've only ever been sick one other time in the whole time I've been here. You're welcome to come over to the jail and come to my cell and see how I'm doing in there.
All right, I'll take a pass on that.
So Judge Boudreaux was kind of funny there. Then on Wednesday, Lori was back in court, still sick.
Information of why the defendant can't proceed today. Although the defendant expressed that she has a headache and is not able to proceed, she was able to fully advocate on her own behalf and articulate to me the reasons why she doesn't think she can proceed and seems to be of sound mind and ability to proceed. So we're going to bring the jury in. How many jurors do we have?
So right there, Judge Boudreaux said they were moving forward. And when the jurors came in, Lori perked right up. So let's get to opening statements. In her opening, prosecutor Trina Kay told the jury that Alex Cox drove Lori's Jeep with Texas plates from Rexburg, Idaho to Arizona in October of 2019 and waited for Brandon Booudreaux to come home.
At 9:13 a.m. on October 2nd of 2019, Brandon Booudreaux returned home. That Jeep had been idling there already for over an hour. When Brandon turned onto his street, he immediately noticed this Jeep because it was parked so close to his driveway. The back of the Jeep was facing towards him, and he immediately also noticed that there was no rear tire. He saw a Texas plate on the Jeep. And then he saw that back window of the Jeep open up, a rifle barrel come out and point at him. And then bang! He heard a shot and his window shattered right next to him. Brandon hit the accelerator and he took off. He turned the corner and drove a block or so away and stopped, calling 911. He talked to the operator and told them where this Jeep was going. As Brandon was speaking with the 911 operator, he had no idea that that bullet had struck his car just a few inches from his head. You'll learn that in the back of that Jeep was this defendant's brother, Alex Cox. He had been lying in wait with a rifle for Brandon to return home. This defendant, Lori Vallow Daybell, the woman seated over here, had loaned her Jeep to her brother so he could drive it to Arizona, so he could be in the back of that Jeep with a very dark tint that no one could see through and wait for Brandon to return home.
We've all heard that wrinkle creams are the secret to looking younger, but according to one Beverly Hills doctor, that might not be the whole story. Dr. John Lakey, a renowned cosmetic surgeon and beauty expert, says that most wrinkle solutions on the market are just glorified moisturizers, and they don't always deliver the results they promise. In fact, some can even irritate your skin. But Dr. Lakey didn't stop there. He's been working on something new, an anti-aging breakthrough he calls the Age Rewinder method. It's a simple, at-home technique that he says can visibly reduce the signs of aging in under 2 minutes. Think of it like a mini makeover, almost like Photoshop for your face, but real. Curious? Dr. Lakey actually put together a short video showing you exactly how it works, step by step, so you can try it yourself from home. The response? It's been huge. The video's already gotten more than 7.2 million views, and the reviews are pouring in. Thousands of women say they look noticeably younger. One even said, "Best results I've ever seen. I'll never stop using this." So if you want to see what it's all about, just go to bhmd1.com/fix or click the link in the description below. It only takes a few minutes to watch. Again, that's bhmd1.com/fix. That's bhmd1.com/fix. Kay went on to discuss the craziness that went on before the attempted murder of Brandon.
The goal of this defendant and her co-conspirators? To shoot and kill Brandon Booudreaux. So let's talk about October 2nd and the weeks leading up to that. All of the actions that this defendant did in furtherance of that conspiracy and the premeditated murder of Brandon Booudreaux. I'm going to start with a little background for you. In June of 2019, Brandon Booudreaux was still married to his then wife, Melani. You're going to learn that Melani is this defendant's niece. You're going to learn they were very close. And you're going to learn that they both had it out for Brandon. On June 25th, Brandon and Melani got into an argument. And Brandon learned that this defendant had told his wife that he was gay, that he had hacked into her computer, and that Brandon was trying to work with her then husband to take her temple recommend away. You're going to learn that many of the people, including Brandon and this defendant, are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And having your temple recommend taken away is a very significant event. You're going to learn and see that Brandon actually texted Lori Vallow on the 25th of June to confront her about these lies, and that she never responded.
So on October 2nd, 2019, Kay said that Alex Cox drove Lori's Jeep Wrangler with those Texas plates to Brandon's rental home and took that shot at him.
Brandon barely moved into that house before the shooting. In fact, he'd moved in sooner than he thought because Melani told him she was going out of town and offered him the kids for an extra weekend. And so he moved in sooner and took the kids while she flew to Rexburg, Idaho on September 26th through the 29th to be with this defendant.
Trina Kay said that after Alex fired at Brandon and missed, Alex knew he was in big trouble.
He knew he hadn't killed Brandon. Brandon's calling 911, and so he searched for Pine Top, Holbrook, Moab, Utah, Fillmore, Utah, and eventually Idaho Falls as he made his way back through back roads. You're going to learn that the police also executed search warrants on this defendant's Gmail account, lollytimeforever@gmail.com. On September 30th, the day when her brother took her Jeep and started driving down to Arizona, she searched, quote, how to get the back seat out of my Jeep Wrangler. And she also searched a YouTube video, Jeep Wrangler JK rear seat removal, how to DIY YouTube video. This defendant continued to be a co-conspirator and to aid her accomplice, Alex Cox, by searching how to remove that back seat of the Jeep so he could better lie in wait to shoot Brandon. This was the defendant's second mistake.
Trina Kay said that Lori Vallow made a third mistake. She placed a phone call from Alex Cox's phone to her phone to give him an alibi. The call lasted 24 minutes, and Kay says it used the exact same cell tower as Lori's phone in Rexburg, Idaho. But Kay said the evidence showed that Alex Cox was in Arizona at that time to shoot Brandon Booudreaux. Now, Lori is representing herself. Again, remember last time it didn't go well for her. She was convicted of conspiring to murder Charles Vallow, after all, and her opening statement already showed signs of trouble.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, here we are at trial. And the judicial system can be difficult to understand at times. There are laws and rules and statutes that govern how things will proceed in this trial. You yesterday got to hear the preliminary jury instructions, so you kind of got an order of how things are going to go. In order for someone to be charged with a crime, as I have been,
Your Honor, I'm going to object to argument versus an opening statement.
I'll remind the defendant, an opening statement should be a preview of what is to be expected at trial. So go ahead.
So not a great start when the prosecutor objects in the first minute of your opening statement, and things didn't get better from there.
sometimes the state charges the defendant with a crime. They have charged me with a crime, a very serious crime. Sometimes they take the allegations to a grand jury to decide if the defendant should be charged.
I'm going to object again, Your Honor. Improper
That's,
argument. Has to strike.
Hold on. The jury should disregard that last comment. How the charges arrived here are not for the jury's consideration. The prior proceedings are not for the jury's consideration. Please proceed.
The state or the prosecution will then take the information gathered, the evidence from law enforcement, and present to you a story, a theory, their hypothesis of what happened. In this case, the prosecutor was not present during this alleged crime. The Gilbert Police Department was not present during this alleged crime. So it is their job to fill in the gaps, make up a theory, and present it to you, the jury, at trial. This is their job. They are not witness to the actual events because they weren't there that day with Brandon at the house when this alleged shooting occurred. This case is about a conspiracy. And a conspiracy is when two or more people make an agreement to commit a crime. They have to willingly and knowingly participate. Conspiracy is an ancient word that appears in the Bible on many occasions. Judas conspired against Jesus with the chief priests for 30 pieces of silver.
Object to, unless this is being presented at trial, I'm not sure that this is appropriate opening.
What is the legal objection?
You're arguing. The opening statement is not argument. I'm going to allow it briefly, but I may cut you off depending on where you're going with that.
Cain conspired against Abel, his brother. This case is a case of conspiracy. The charge against me is that I conspired with my brother, Alex Cox, to murder my niece's husband, Brandon Booudreaux. But you will find, as you begin to see the evidence put forth in this case, that there was not any animosity between Brandon and myself. I personally did not have any motivation to have harm come to Brandon. In fact, Brandon and I had a very friendly relationship all of the time that I have known him.
Lori Vallow then described her relationship with her niece, Melanie.
I first met Brandon when he was marrying my niece, Melanie. Melanie and I are very close because my sister, her mother, passed away when she was just 9 years old. So Melanie and I think of each other and love each other like a mother and daughter, even though we are aunt and niece. So our families remained close, Melani and Brandon's family and my family. And in each other's lives, like everyday lives. We spent holidays together and shared in everyday life. I was there for Melani and Brandon's wedding and for the birth of all 4 of their children. I was also very close to all 4 of their children. In this case, you will hear Brandon himself tell you that someone shot a gun at his car. You will learn in this testimony that Brandon was not hurt. You will learn that he wasn't even sure what had happened. But you will hear that Brandon immediately blamed me, which begs the question, was I an enemy to Brandon? That is news to me, and hopefully by the end of this trial, we will all have some answers to that question. The prosecutors from the state have to prove to you that I conspired, meaning made an agreement with my brother to murder Brandon. So you will decide. Right now, according to the law, I am innocent. I remain innocent until the state of Arizona and its prosecutors show you enough evidence to convince you that I had anything to do with this alleged crime. And I want you to look carefully and determine if this event was a crime at all. Did a shooting actually occur? Only Brandon claims that it did. Only Brandon names me and Alex. You will learn that Brandon himself did own a gun. You will learn that Brandon knew how to shoot his gun. You will learn that Brandon and Melani were going through a divorce. And you will learn that even though Brandon is the one who actually filed for a divorce, he was blaming me for his divorce.
So right there, it sounds like Lori Vallow Daybell is suggesting that Brandon Booudreaux staged the shooting. Wow. Then Lori suggested Brandon was working with the detective to pin everything on her and Melani.
You will learn that Detective Pillar and Brandon discussed through email how they can demonstrate Melani's financial gain if Brandon were to have died around October 2nd, 2019. This is what a conspiracy looks like. 2 people trying to set up another person for a crime. My niece, Melani Boudreaux, is named by the state as a co-conspirator. However, she has not been charged with the crime.
I'm going to object
but
and
I
have that
have.
struck as well, Your Honor.
The jury should disregard that statement. You're going to receive an instruction later that all persons that may be involved would not necessarily be charged or called as witnesses, and you'll follow those instructions later. Go ahead.
I was not living in Arizona at the time this alleged incident happened on October 2nd, 2019. I was not even aware such an event had taken place. I did have a close relationship with my brother Alex, but I was not aware of his every move.
Now, to be clear, Melani is listed as a co-conspirator, but she has not been charged with a crime. So who was the state's first witness? You guessed it, Brandon Booudreaux.
Can you try to describe for us the relationship between Melani, your ex-wife, and her aunt, Lori Vallow?
I would say that she looked at her as maybe more than an aunt, like closer to a mother figure. Her mother passed away when she was younger, and she let her hold a lot of influence in her life.
Okay. Starting sort of the end of 2018 through 2019, did you notice Melani spending a lot more time with Lori?
Can you ask that question one more time?
Sure. Starting sort of the end of 2018 through 2019, did you notice Melani spending more time with Lori?
Yes.
In 2019, did you start to notice issues with your marriage with Melani?
Yes, I did.
Without going into what was said, did you ever speak with Charles Vallow about Lori Vallow interfering with your marriage with Melani?
Yes, I did.
Then Boudreaux testified about a big argument he and Melani had in June of 2019.
So you said it started out as a conversation about going to your grandfather's funeral.
Yes.
And then it changed into something different?
It did, yes.
During this conversation with Melani on June 25th, were you accused or told that you had been involved in doing some things to her aunt, Lori Vallow?
I was, yes. This sticks out because it was so bizarre to me. I was trying to talk to my wife about our relationship, and she was using different language that was confusing. She kept saying that she was going to reveal things about me, and it just didn't make sense. And then she accused me of hacking Lori's computer, which I knew I hadn't done, and I didn't know why it mattered to what we were talking about. So, that something like that sticks with you because it's just doesn't connect.
Do you know how to hack into other people's computers?
I do not.
So you're being accused of hacking into Lori Vallow's computer. Did anything get raised during this conversation regarding your sexuality?
Yeah, it was a very long argument. It started in the afternoon and went past midnight. And as things kept escalating, more different allegations that didn't make any sense kept coming up, and one of those was that God had revealed to her that I was gay, and that one stuck out because Charles had told me that Lori was trying to convince her of that, which I thought was so bizarre. It just didn't make any sense. I was married and we had 4 kids.
Brandon was hurt and confused as the big argument continued.
When you were having this argument, this conversation with Melani on June 25th, what are you thinking?
It began with just frustration, which when I took a little time and was introverted and thought about it, I realized wasn't fair. If she didn't want to go to a grandfather's funeral, I recognized that me feeling frustrated was something I should deal with myself, but not try to force someone else to do something that they weren't comfortable with. And then it was just really painful because the rest of it there's a lot of frustration that comes from, at the end of it, she was asking for a divorce and demanding that we end our marriage. And, I had 4 kids, and this was going to change their entire world. It was going to change everything for my family.
As you are listening to the things that Melani was telling you that evening or afternoon into the evening of June 25th, did you believe that Lori Vallow had been involved in some of these ideas that were being told to you as to why your marriage should end?
Yeah, I mean, how else does her aunt's computer getting hacked even come up without Lori being involved? So I got pretty frustrated at one point, and I think I told her I'm going to take a break, and I texted Lori and Charles and tried to call both of them.
Brandon said he never got a response, and there was more about that came into this argument that involved the Mormon church.
Melani believed I helped to try to get her temperament recommend taken away, and that we both knew that it wasn't true. Do you want me to just read it?
Sure.
Lori, I sent this to Charles. I'm sending it to you as well. Charles, Melani believes I helped you to try to get Lori's temple recommend taken away. You and I both know that's not true. She does not believe me. I wanted to send this to both of you, both you and Lori. If either of you care at all for me or my children, you'll come forward and be truthful. I've never done anything to hurt either of you. I can't believe you would lie to her about something like this. I gave you a blessing when you're at your worst in my home. My children will be punished if my wife leaves me or can't believe me when I have done nothing. This is on your heads to make it right.
So your initial thing was about that temple recommend because that was so important, right?
Yes.
But that was just one of the lies that had been told to you by Melani.
Yes, and at this time I didn't know that she also believed that I was gay. That came after I had sent these texts.
Did you get a response after this first text?
No.
Do we see then a second text at 9:10 p.m., same day, September 25th?
Yes.
What did you say then?
At least have the respect to talk to me to my face, not whispered behind my back. She believes you and you are lying. This is going to affect my children.
Okay.
Now, there was no response from that text either, or another text after that. After this, Brandon and Melani agreed to sell their home and split the money as part of their divorce mediation. Fast forward to October, and Brandon was moving into a rental, and he said only Melani had the address.
So, do we see here on October 2nd at 7:40 in the morning, you sent a text message to Melani saying, pulling up.
Correct.
And then you received a message for her that she'd be there in a minute?
Yes.
Were you able to hand off your youngest to Melani?
Yes.
Did you go home after that?
I did not.
Did you tell Melani where you were going after that?
I did not.
Where did you go?
I went to the gym.
Then Brandon returned home after the gym and a meeting and noticed something odd.
I remember coming around the corner, kind of letting it almost kind of coast as I was waiting for it to catch the signal and send my my garage door up. And while I was doing that, I noticed a Jeep that was parked, and it was really awkward.
Why was it awkward?
Well, it was parked on top of the car that was normally there. So there's usually a van there, and it was just like parked nose to the van. And it was like the back of it was almost blocking my driveway. It was parked so you just wouldn't think anyone would choose to park like that. So it kind of stood out to you right as you came around that corner. I noticed it had a Texas plate. The other thing that was awkward about it was no back tire, which Jeeps always have the back tire. That's like their thing. So all of that stood out, right? I mean, you don't have a lot of time when you're coming around a corner like that, but all of that just like, I was like, oh, that's weird. And I remember thinking my neighbor must know somebody from Texas, because I'm new. I don't know anybody yet.
When you were coming in and sort of slowing down, what do you see happen?
So as I let the car kind of coast in, the back window pops up. I see a muzzle. I hear a bang. And you know your fight or flight kicks in at that point. So for me, I just immediately thought, and my window shattered. You know, all that happened in like the snap of a finger. And so I just immediately thought someone's shooting at me because I saw a muzzle. So I hit the accelerator and I just went straight. I no longer was planning on turning into my driveway to let the garage door trigger.
Now, Brandon said it looked like a rifle with a suppressor on it. He texted his dad that someone tried to kill him. He could not see who was driving the Jeep. Then the cross-examination was put on hold until the next day. Lori seemed to be focused during the cross on the claim by Melani during that big argument that Brandon might be gay.
But I was not the focus of that entire argument. Is that correct?
My focus was my family, my wife and my children. I love them, and I didn't want them to go through pain.
Is that what you spent all those hours arguing?
Yeah, because I love them and I wanted to work through things with my wife, yes. I didn't spend it for any other reason.
And during this argument, there were several issues that you discussed. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And one of those issues was Melani informing you of text messages that she had viewed?
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay. Is one of those issues a video of you on Facebook dancing at the pink pony that Melani showed you?
Object to relevance to 404B evidence and 403.
Sustained.
Did Melani show you a video of yourself
Object
during
again
that
to the same
argument?
manner.
Sustained.
Lori continued with her questions.
You told Detective Pillar that someone had convinced Melani that you were gay.
I can't remember if I specifically told him that someone had convinced Melanie that I was gay. I would have to review the conversation I had with him to be able to say for certain that's how I worded it.
Okay. Do you recall telling him that she has a friend named Lori? Melanie?
I did not say she has a friend named Lori. No.
You didn't? Would you like to would you like to look at your interview?
I
To refresh
said
your
that she-
recollection?
I said that she has an aunt named Lori.
Would you like to review this to refresh your recollection?
Sure.
Okay.
Brandon said it had to be a transcriptionist error. Then Lori started asking questions about how Brandon was convinced she was the one who convinced Melanie that he was gay, and things went off the rails.
The state, the defendant, and advisory counsel were at the bench when we had that short 1 minute sidebar, but I don't know if anyone wants to supplement the record on that. Ms. Kay?
Just, Your Honor, that, again, the state did raise any issue of character evidence under 404A and 405, that if the defendant opens the door and tries to advise that she's a good person, a peaceful person, a kind person, a loving person, any of those other types of things, that we believe that would allow us under 405 to then bring in specific acts, such as the murder of her children, her husband, and her current husband's wife.
All right.
Which would also be 404B that they withdrew.
No, it would be
Yeah,
405.
they withdrew it, but if you bring up 404 that you...
Then all 404B is in, or do we get a hearing on what 404B can come in? If I open the door, do I get a hearing? We stop trial and I get a hearing on...
Stop. We'll have a very short hearing, okay? If you're going to introduce how you have great character and good character, we're going to have a short hearing on what evidence that they can bring in to rebut that character, which could
Okay.
include being convicted of 4 murders.
And would you
talk
like...
to your advisory counsel during the break. And
You don't
maybe
need to yell at me either.
yelling at you, okay?
Yeah, you are, and you do not need to talk
Okay.
to me that way. I'm
Take
very
her out.
courteous.
Take her out.
I'm very courteous to you.
Take her out. No, you have been nothing near courteous to me during the course of these proceedings.
And that's it for this episode of Crime Fix. I'm Angenette Levy. Thanks so much for being with me. I'll see you back here next time.